Hello again, everybody. This is Joseph, continuing a tutorial about multimeters and measuring car batteries. I made recently quite a few videos about the best multimeters to use, and I stated some reasons, and I just want to elaborate more on why I strongly recommend actually this type of clamp meter. The cheapest one, maybe about $50-$60, instead of using Harbor Freight. This is more accurate, has more functions more easily. And as I explained before, usually when you measure current, if I want to measure, for instance, we spoke about if you have a possible drain on your battery, you leave it overnight, you come the next day, you can't crank, you can't even put on the lights, you can't even put the power lock on the doors don't even open. Why? Because it's power. They are motors every time you hit the switch. Well, if the battery's so dead it can't even open the doors, you can imagine it can't even give out over 200 amps to start cranking. If it can't even give out 3 amps or 5 amps for the lights, it's not going to give 270 or whatever cylinders you have. So you can forget about that. Anyway, the old method is we used to take these meters, and these type of meters I see all over the videos on YouTube, used to put the red one probe over here in this one. This only goes up to 10 amps. As I stated before, what happens if you're measuring more than 10 amps? You don't know until you actually put the meter. Then it'll be too late. You blow the fuse. The thing that I wanted to point out, and many of these has these digital meters, how do you know where to put DC volts? Well, if I tell you to put DC volts, it's over here, but it does not specify DC volts anywhere over here on the screen as part of the display. So if I want to measure ohms, it does not tell me I'm measuring ohms. So for a person who's not familiar, it might lead to problems. How do I know volts, DC, AC? Doesn't tell me anything. Or if I'm going to use this as an amp meter, still doesn't tell me anything. Doesn't show me anything that I'm on amps. So unless I know what the symbols are and the proper ranges, that's the only thing that will help me with these type of meters. Coming to this meter, if I want to measure amps, and like I said, this, you do not have to remove any battery cables for this. For clamp amp meters, there is a magnetic field around a wire that has current induced in it or flowing in it. So anyway, if this is a clamp or a battery, simple. I don't have to disconnect anything. All I do is just put around the wire. There's a magnetic field around. It'll read it. No disconnection. No wrench needed, nothing. You can avoid problems. But the thing that what I wanted to point out is, the most important thing is with these type of meters, this is for AC and DC. Obviously we're concerned with DC in a battery, the current. This is over here. As you can see over here, this is why I like this type of meter. This can avoid problems. Look what it says here, amps. I know I'm measuring amps. Look what it says here, DC. I know I'm measuring DC amps. Even if I don't know what the selector, the range is, I come to here and it says DC and it says amps. Now, the symbol over here is a sine wave. This is AC. It tells me AC, and the A represents amps. So I know I'm measuring amps in this selection, this range selector. That's the beauty of this meter. Let's say I want to measure the output of the battery. Again, look, it tells me volts, millivolts, DC volts. That's the beauty of it. AC volts. It tells you. So if you are not sure of what these symbols represent. I need the DC to measure the battery output of the car battery, obviously. You flip it to either one and say, well, this is AC. This is the wrong one. Let me try the other one. DC. Now it's good. Other thing is, when I do measure the car battery voltage, as I specified in other videos, I do not want to hold the probes. These are called the probes on the car battery terminal. What do? I put it on hold, as I specified. When I put on hold, I can take away the probes. Or if I'm measuring a sensor in a very tight spot where fans are running or things like that, I just want to probe it quickly. I put it on hold. It holds that number. So in other words, if I want to measure the car battery at 12.6 volts, or the alternator output, I want to measure the current, and I want to measure the voltage, I just quickly probe it, take it away. First I put the hold function on. Hold means I put in memory. Whatever that measurement I measured by probing it, that'll show me, and I don't have to hold this probe for a long time. That's the beauty of such meters, as opposed to this one, doesn't tell me amps, DC volts, so you're liable to make mistakes. The other thing is, as I've seen in other videos, if you put this in series, if I take out the cable, if I take out the positive cable, and most of the time you always disconnect the negative one. If I take out the positive, that means the positive has to go to the positive post, the terminal. If I take out the negative cable, then I have to put the negative one to the negative post, the negative terminal. As I've seen other videos, they make mistakes. They just put it in series and that's it. It's not the correct way to measure. Always put, if you disconnect the negative first when you're disconnecting. Whether I'm working on a module or whatever it is, take out the negative, but this negative has to go to the most negative point, which is the negative of the battery. If I'm taking out the positive, which you don't do, I will put the positive of this meter. What would happen if you do it the opposite? You just read a minus sign, as this is flickering. However, you got to do it the right way. Negative to negative post. Positive to positive post. Now, as I specified before, to measure continuity. To measure continuity right now, outer limit. OL means outer limit. It's more than the limit of the range. If this can measure 40 megohms, 40 million ohms, and I'm measuring 50 million ohms, it'll show me outer limit. That means it's more than the range can handle. If I have $5, I'm supposed to measure $5, but I'm measuring $10, I'm out of the limit. I'm out of the threshold, as they say. Another thing is, when you see the yellow one over here, I can convert. This is diode, which we don't use that much. Then you have continuity. Continuity, like I explained, means I don't have to look at the meter when I measure two things that are shorted together, which have close to zero resistance. As I made a video about finding the ground from where to measure, you don't always want to go to the negative battery. That way you will need long cables. You want to get as close as possible as you can to the item or component that you're measuring. So therefore, please subscribe to my channel, Automotive Electronic Schematics by Joseph, and I have another channel for electronic students, colleges, Joe Electronic Schematics, and there's a few other points I wanted to point out. When you do measure a voltage or an amp, you zero it, because there are signal levels around us, so we can zero it as much as we can to try to get a zero, as you see, especially DC, to try to get an accurate measurement. Now, about dead batteries and things like that I've seen in other videos. First of all, it beyonds me sometimes, or astonishes me, where videos are made, and these are videos made in repair shops, not keeping in mind who we're directing the videos to. We're directing the videos to the average person on the street who wants to save money and to try to do the repair himself. This is who I target my audience to. Now, if you have your car, and most people have their cars in the driveway or parked in the street, they don't have the luxury of taking a charger and charging the car battery if it's dead, to find out if the battery is dead, waiting for their 2 or 3 hours. And to change the battery when the videos say, like, okay, change the battery because you can't do a drain test and all that. How is the person stranded in the middle of the street, first of all, going to have the proper wrench, 8 millimeter wrench or 10 millimeter wrench or a ratchet, quarter ratchet, whatever it is? Where is he going to have the tool, first of all, to take off the cables? Second of all, how is he going to get to a store to replace a battery, even if he does measure it and say it's bad? He is stranded on the street or in the driveway. How is he going to get around to put a new battery in his car? The problem is the videos targeting the people in the repair shops, like Eric, the car guy, who is just very, very a genius and very great in electronics. But I think he missed the point that you're talking about changing car batteries. The average person on the street has his car parked and is stranded. He cannot go and change a battery, and he cannot go and charge his battery. That's number one. And he doesn't have the tools probably to change the battery. And who would want to do that in the first place if you are stranded and trying to get to work? That point, I think, is missed by most of these people. They are in repair shops where they have the facility and they have the ability to charge it and to change the batteries. You're stranded in the street. You do not have that capability or ability to go and shop around for a battery and replace the battery. You're in the street. You're in the driveway. I think that's the point that's been missed. But this is the audience that I'm targeting, and that's why I said, if you're overnight, you leave the car and you come, the best shot is to try to get a boost, first of all. Then you want to figure out if it is the battery. Well, obviously, after you boosted it, you wait for the alternator to recharge it, right? 15, 20 minutes. Then you let the car sit for a while. Then you take this meter. Then I see if I measure any current, obviously with all the accessories off. I don't want to change a battery if it's not necessary. I'll get a boost. So what I'm saying is, let me see if the current was the reason. Obviously, the battery was weak. And how do you know it's weak? If you turn on the lights, not even the headlights, the parking lights, you're drawing about 3 to 5 amps of current. If you can't even get 3 amps of current to turn on the lights, or if your dashboard lights, the instrument cluster, the board that's inside that I worked on before has gauges in it and warning lights, those warning lights don't even come on. You need about 11.5 volts to turn that on with microprocessors and things like that. You can't even turn on the warning lights on the dashboard, and the gauges don't work. You cannot think about trying to crank an engine for 200 amps if I can't even get 3 amps. If my power doors don't even work, remember there's a motor that turns for you to open the windows, the power windows, the doors that I made videos on. And if you can't even have current for that, obviously it's a weak battery. The question is it a battery weak by itself, or does something cause the battery to become weak? That's where we pose the question and we say, okay, let's try to get a boost. That's problem number one, or solution number one. Try to get off the street or the driveway so we can go to work, and then we'll let it charge fully as much as we can so we can get a reading if it's being drained by something. Now, the accuracy of the reading is not significant to me if it's 3 amps or 5 amps or 10 amps. 500 milliamps is equal to 1 amp, not 50 milliamps like I see in other videos. 0.5 volts is equal to zero point 0.5 amps is equal to 500 milliamps. There's a difference of $5 and $500. So 0.5 amps is 500 milliamps, which is half of an amp. If I draw more than an amp, I get concerned. Whether it's significant, 3 amps or 5 amps, it's not significant to me. As long as I'm drawing more than an amp, I'm concerned. So this is my point that I wanted to make. My videos are geared for people. The average person who leaves his car on the street does not have the tools, does not have the ability to go. Obviously, if his car is not working, he's not going to go and go to a shop and change the battery or give it a boost, a charge for 2-3 hours. That's just nonsense. It doesn't make sense. You have to understand the audience that you're geared to. I know I'm speaking quite a while, but it astonished me that videos are made in repair shops and facilities where they have the ability to change and to check the batteries with a car battery tester. This is not the person on the street who's stranded has the ability to do that. The best thing you can do is just get a boost. Now, like I said, theoretically, charge the battery if you can to do the test of the drainage with this clamp meter. But if you can't, significance of accuracy is not important. Anyway, I hope you understood the point that I made. I think I elaborated more than I should have. I apologize for that. Please watch my other videos on my channel, Automotive Electronic Schematics by Joseph, where I will elaborate less. I have elaborated less, and I showed you schematics and hopefully how to use the clamp meter on the cables to read. So notice the difference between this one and this one. The A represents amps and DC. You cannot make a mistake with this one. And you do not have to take out any cables from the dead battery. So you cannot make any mistakes of, okay, look, this is only up to 10 amps. I'm measuring more than that. You don't have to worry about it. This measures up to 4,200 amps, more than you need. Thanks for watching.